It started like any other evening. Rima was late for her bus, and someone at a small roadside stall told her there was a shortcut through the woods. 1 hour through Laura's forest, they said, and she'd reach the main road. "Just don't go twice," the old man at the stall warned. His voice was low, like he was scared the forest could hear him. "No one crosses Laura's twice. The second time, it's the forest that comes out." Rima laughed it off. Superstitions, she thought. Just a bunch of village nonsense. But the moment she stepped inside, the air changed. It smelled like damp soil and rot. The sound of cicadas faded behind her. All that was left was her footsteps, and then a second pair, just slightly behind. Step, step, pause, step. She stopped. The echo stopped too. She turned around. No one. Just trees. Tall, thin, and too still. Like they were waiting for her to blink. When she looked down, her heart froze. There were 2 sets of footprints. One hers. One deeper, heavier. And from behind the trees, something whispered, "You've already gone too far to go back." Every path looked the same. The trees twisted when she turned her head, and the trail curved into itself like it was breathing. Then came the laugh. Soft, childlike, familiar. "Rima, why did you come back?" Her breath caught. That voice, she knew it. It was Noor, her childhood friend. The one who disappeared 10 years ago. The one who took the same shortcut after summer camp and never came out. Rima whispered her name, and the forest answered with a sigh that almost sounded human. She kept walking until she reached a clearing, and there stood a single black tree, its bark slick and wet like something alive. At its roots lay a half-buried box, and carved on the lid was one word, Noor. The fog thickened. Something moved behind it. Footsteps, slow and uneven. Then she appeared, a woman soaked from head to toe, hair covering her face. When the wind lifted her hair, Rima felt the world tilt. It was Noor, but not the Noor she remembered. Her skin was gray, her smile stretched too far, and her eyes. There were no eyes? "I came out first," she whispered. "Now it's your turn." Rima stumbled back, but the ground turned to mud, cold hands rising from beneath to grab her ankles. Noor walked closer, touching Rima's cheek with a trembling, freezing hand. "The forest only lets you through once," she said. "To return, you must give something back." The black tree groaned. The box opened on its own. Inside, there was an old photograph, Rima and Noor as children, smiling. But as Rima watched, her own face began to fade from the picture. She screamed, but the forest whispered louder. 1,000 voices breathing her name. "Rima, Rima, Rima." Then Noor leaned close to her ear. "You can go back, but only if you leave something behind." Pain exploded in her chest. Something was being pulled out, a dark shape, a shadow rising from her body. It smiled at her with her own face. "Now I'm the one who gets to leave," the shadow said. At dawn, villagers found a woman walking out of the forest. Her body was scratched and pale, but she smiled, calm and quiet. When they asked her name, she said, "I'm Rima." But later that day, her mother found something strange. On Rima's desk was a photograph. Rima was in it, but there was no shadow behind her. That night, from far beyond the trees, a laugh echoed through the valley. Soft, feminine, and horribly familiar. The forest had let someone out, but not the same one who went in. Her mother noticed first. Rima didn't blink much anymore. And when she did, it was slow, mechanical, like a puppet trying to imitate life. She used to hum while cooking. Now the house was always silent. One night, her mother knocked on her door to call her for dinner. No answer. When she peeked through the gap, Rima was standing in front of the mirror, not moving, just standing for hours. When her mother whispered, "Rima," the reflection turned first, then the real Rima followed a second later. Her mother froze. Because in the mirror, Rima's lips were still moving, mouthing something the real one wasn't saying. She started keeping a small box under her bed. One night, a neighbor boy sneaked in, curious like kids always are. Inside the box was a folded photograph. Old, faded. It showed two little girls, Rima and Noor, smiling in front of the same black tree from the forest. But there was something wrong with the picture. Behind them, hidden in the blur of the trees, was a third shape. Tall, thin, its hands resting on their shoulders. When the boy blinked, the photo was clean again. But that night, he woke up screaming. Said he saw a face at his window. Rima's face, but upside down. He moved away. The next morning, Rima's house began to change. Things moved at night. Scratching noises under the floor. Sometimes, her mother swore she heard breathing coming from beneath the floorboards. When she finally gathered the courage to check, she lifted one loose plank and found soil. Fresh, wet, like something had been buried there recently. That same night, Rima's mother woke to find her daughter standing beside the bed, whispering, "It's hungry, Mom. The forest can't reach this far, so it needs me." And when her mother tried to scream, Rima just smiled. "Don't worry," she said. "You won't feel it." No one saw the mother again after that. Weeks later, police entered the house. The place smelled like mud and old rain. They found Rima sitting in the kitchen, hands folded neatly on the table, staring out the window. She didn't move when they entered, didn't speak, didn't blink. One of the officers swore he heard whispering, not from Rima, but from inside her chest. When they asked what happened to her mother, Rima smiled and said, "She went back through the forest, but the forest doesn't let you through twice." The officer looked confused. Then Rima leaned forward, and something shifted behind her eyes, like another face pressing against the inside of her skin. "Unless," she whispered, "you bring someone to take your place." They never found her mother's body. Only muddy footprints leading from the backyard into the woods, and back out again. A second pair, smaller, child-sized. That night, the officer who'd spoken to Rima woke up choking on the smell of damp soil. He went to his bathroom mirror, and there, written in the fog on the glass, were 4 words, "You came back twice." He screamed, because behind him, through the fog, a hand reached out from his reflection and touched his shoulder. 6 months after Rima's disappearance, strange things started happening in the city. People reported finding wet leaves in their apartments, even on the 12th floor. Some woke to the smell of rain and soil and found muddy footprints leading from their mirrors to their beds. At first they blamed the weather, a leak, a joke. But then came the whispers. "Don't walk the same path twice. She's watching the reflections." Those who heard it always vanished within a week. A local journalist, Dimas Rahman, was the first to connect the dots. He found 10 missing persons, all from the same village. All once claimed to have walked through the forest. He even managed to find a video recovered from a discarded phone. It was Rima's, the last footage taken before she returned. It showed her walking through the forest, crying, whispering to herself. Then she turned the camera toward her face, but it wasn't her face anymore. Her eyes were mirrors. And in their reflection, something vast moved between the trees. Dimas paused the footage and saw it, the outline of something tall and thin, its limbs bending the wrong way, its face split open like bark peeling from a tree. The file corrupted after that, but the sound didn't stop. Even after closing the phone, he could still hear her voice whispering from the speaker, "You watched the path. Now the path will watch you." Days later, Dimas noticed something strange on his desk. Small patches of green moss growing along the edges of his keyboard. He cleaned it, but the next morning, it was back. Wetter, thicker, and from somewhere in the room, he could hear breathing. He unplugged the phone, threw it into a drawer, and left the apartment. But when he came back that night, the entire wall near his desk had turned black. Veins of wood creeping across the paint, and the faint smell of the forest floor filling the air. He heard a sound from inside the wall, like someone whispering through dirt. When he leaned closer, he realized it was saying his name, not once, but twice. "Dimas, Dimas." The second voice wasn't echoing. It was coming from behind him. He ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the light. In the mirror, he saw himself, shaking, terrified. But the reflection didn't copy him. It smiled. Mud started dripping from the corners of its mouth. Then, slowly it raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. Leaves bloomed beneath its palm. Roots crawled across the surface like cracks in ice. The mirror trembled, and something pushed against it from the other side. Dimas screamed and smashed the glass, but behind the shards wasn't a wall. It was a forest. Dark, wet, infinite, and deep inside that forest, he saw her. Rima, standing under the black tree, smiling with no eyes, holding a box that whispered his name. "You found the way back," she said. "Now the forest can finally leave." The next morning, Dimas's apartment was empty. No body, no sign of struggle, just a wet trail leading to the balcony, and a single seed sprouting through the floor. Within days, the building's power began to fail. Maintenance crews found roots clogging the pipes, and in the basement, a small patch of forest floor had begun to grow, complete with moss, fog, and the faint echo of footsteps. Someone recorded it before the building was evacuated. In the background of that video, if you listen closely, you can hear a woman humming a lullaby, the same one Rima used to hum while cooking. 2 weeks after Dimas disappeared, a repair team entered his abandoned building to check for gas leaks. What they found was far worse. The walls were breathing, one worker said in a leaked audio log. You could see it, moving, like it was alive. The footage from their body cameras was never released publicly, but a few frames leaked onto the dark web. They showed hallways made of bark, doors pulsing like lungs, and the faint sound of leaves rustling from somewhere inside the concrete. The city called it a fungal contamination. They demolished the building 3 days later, but the roots didn't burn. They sank. Dr. Farah Sutanto, a trauma therapist who once interviewed Rima's mother, started noticing her patients describing the same dream. A forest that remembers you, a voice that says you've walked too far, eyes in the trees. Some patients stopped coming. Others claimed they could hear leaves brushing the walls when she asked about their dreams. And one day, while writing her notes, Dr. Farah found a dried leaf pressed between her pages, its veins forming the shape of an eye. That night, she received an email with no sender. It only said, "You shouldn't have looked for the forest." The forest looks back. Security footage across the city began showing strange anomalies. Subway tunnels covered in moss, streetlights flickering with silhouettes of trees behind them, and commuters who vanished mid-frame as if swallowed by a shadow that breathed. Engineers digging, underground reported finding wood-like structures intertwined with phone cables, roots that pulsed, carrying faint electrical signals. When one technician put a receiver to it, he heard a recording, a woman's voice. "Keep walking, but never twice." Then came the night of the broadcast. A local radio station accidentally played an old interview, Dimas's final recording. The host introduced it as a recovered tape from a missing journalist investigating a forest myth. But 5 minutes into the broadcast, listeners reported static, followed by the sound of rain, footsteps, and a woman's whisper. "You found the path again." The station cut the signal immediately, but across the city, every speaker, phone, and smart TV began to emit the same faint echo, the sound of wind through trees. By dawn, over 100 people were gone. And in the middle of an empty intersection, there was a tree grown overnight. Its trunk split open like a mouth. Inside, police found a camera. Rima's. The last frame showed Dimas, half merged with roots, his body becoming part of the tree. His eyes were still open, and through them you could see the forest behind. 3 months after the city's evacuation, the government sent in a special team known only as Unit 7. Their mission: investigate the source of the root phenomenon and retrieve any surviving data from within the growth zone. The city had vanished under a layer of fog. What remained was a forest of glass and wood. Skyscrapers melted into twisted trunks, and streets covered with leaves that whispered when stepped on. Everywhere they turned, there were signs of Dimas. Half-recorded transmissions, a broken camera, even his ID card fused into bark. "Whatever this is," one of them said, It remembers him. Their radios crackled constantly, even with no power source nearby. Amid the static, a faint voice repeated the same phrase, "You've already walked this path." One by one, their GPS units began looping, no matter which direction they moved. The signal always pointed back to the same coordinates, 7.4421, 110.2123, the center of the original Lara's forest. They finally reached it after 3 days. At least they thought they did, because in the middle of the overgrown ruins stood a single, massive tree, its trunk the size of a building, its surface rippling like breathing skin. From its base, something pulsed, a heartbeat faint but steady. One soldier, Captain Arif, activated his body camera. The following is a transcript from the recovered video. Camera log, 5:47 a.m. The tree. It's covered in faces. Hundreds of them, moving. 5:49 a.m. Wait, that's impossible. That's Rima. 5:50 a.m. She's whispering something. She's, "Oh God." The camera shook violently. The sound of wind became a scream, not air moving, but voices blending together, each one begging to be remembered. Then, for a moment, the image cleared. The lens focused on the tree center, where an opening pulsed like a doorway. Inside was light, and through that light, Captain Arif saw a reflection of himself, walking toward the same tree. A perfect loop. "There's no exit," he whispered. We never left. The footage ended there. Days later, a single radio signal was picked up from inside the quarantine zone. The voice was weak, distorted by wind and static. "This is Arif. If anyone finds this, listen carefully. The forest isn't a place. It's a pattern. Every thought of it feeds it. Every retelling opens another path. Stop speaking its name. Stop remembering it." Then silence, followed by the faint sound of rain. And just before the signal ended, another voice whispered, "Not human. You already have." The government declared the area permanently sealed. No one was allowed to enter. But months later, reports came from nearby towns. People dreaming of forest, of mirrors filled with mist, of someone calling their name from behind the trees. Some swore they saw leaves growing inside their homes. Others said they heard footsteps behind their reflections. And one night, in a small apartment far from the city, a phone began ringing. The number was unknown. But when the man answered, he heard a familiar voice, calm, distant, echoing through static. "Hi, it's Rima. You found the way back." Then the line went dead. The window fogged over. And from outside came the sound of wet footsteps, approaching the door. They said you can only walk through the forest once. But that's not true. Every time you remember it, you're already inside it again. The forest doesn't wait for footsteps anymore. It grows wherever someone whispers its name. So if you've listened this far, don't say it out loud, because the path has already begun beneath you. They said you can only walk through the forest once. But if you're hearing this, maybe you already have. Thank you for listening. And whatever you do tonight, don't look behind you.